Hello and welcome to Hot and Heavy, the Elaine Bennis podcast. I'm your host, Siobhan Fallon. Today I'll be talking about Season 3, Episode 2, The Truth. Hello everyone, I hope everyone's doing well. I'm doing okay. No, actually, I'm doing great. This past Monday, the decision was made to require masks in my kids' school. I'm not sure. I think it was last week's episode, maybe the week before. If you've been listening, you know that this was a topic that I found very frustrating because, well, I don't know. I guess I'm just, I just tend to be this crazy person who believes in science and data and preventing a disaster before it happens. And I take the advice of people who are experts in a field versus people who can barely navigate the school's website. Ooh, burn. None of you know who I'm talking about, so I feel safe kind of being a little bit bitchy right now. But anyway, I'll move on to more positive things. But I am. I'm so glad. I just feel like this was literally the least we could ask was to have our kids be in masks. Everything is open. They're all going in person. They're all intermingling. Activities are going on. Nothing is really locked down anymore. So it's like, well, these kids are too young to get vaccinated. Why don't we wear masks? I don't know, right? I mean, seems pretty logical. And again, call me crazy, but when it comes to protecting our children, I feel like as adults, we should make decisions based on keeping them out of the hospital or passing something on to vulnerable adults that could die. Just call me crazy, but I'd like to prevent that. There were plenty of parents who were very pissed about it. And, well, on Monday evening, I just kind of had to grin and giggle into my bubbly drink. Do you guys drink bubbly? I'm trying to get off of my on again, off again. I'll call it an addiction. It's not a crazy addiction, but I'm going to say pop because I'm from Michigan, but soda, Coke, whatever you want to call it. It's my weakness. And I love a cherry Coke. And so I've been giving into that. I've been good for a long time where I would just limit it to maybe once a week, or only if I went to a restaurant, I would, let myself kind of indulge in a soda or a pop. But, this past, I'd say month and a half, I've been keeping Coke in the house, which I usually don't do. And yeah, at least once a day, I've been having a Coke, a full can of Coke. I saw the effects almost immediately with my body, which is just the fun part of being in your 40s. If you're not there yet, yeah, it's something to look forward to. Not really. But I feel it's my duty to warn you. But anyway, I'm trying to get this habit under control again. And I find that the sparkling waters that are flavored help. They're certainly not a comparable replacement. But you know what? I'm doing what I can so that I'm not just chugging loads of sugar. I don't drink diet. I can't do diet. Somehow I've convinced myself that, well, it's not that artificial stuff. That's gross because, everything else in Coke is supernatural. But anyway, bubbly. I've been partaking in this mango bubbly. This is not an advertisement. I know you're shocked that bubbly doesn't sponsor Hot and Heavy, but the mango bubbly I find to be really tolerable. Some of them have just such a artificial taste when they try to add these flavors. Most of the time I'm just trying to drink water, but when I need that carbonation, fizziness, I just have to turn to one of these types of sparkling waters. LaCroix is another one that, the lemon lime one I like. Okay, this is not a podcast about sparkling water, so I'm just going to move on. And moving on to some fun news about Seinfeld. It is going to be streaming on Netflix starting October 1st. Yes. Thank you. I talked about this before. I always like to just kind of have it on in the background if I'm cooking or doing stuff around the house and, putting in that DVD. And I do it for the podcast. I work extra hard and I put that DVD in and scroll through the menu, which I do have to say, those DVDs are so old that the menu and the navigation through the DVD is so fucking annoying, but you guys, I do it for you. I do it for you. But anyway, I'm excited that it's going to be on Netflix. I find Netflix to be far superior than Hulu. I hate that I have 1,800 streaming services. That's a whole other discussion, but Seinfeld on Netflix starting October 1st. I'm excited. All right, let's get into this episode. The synopsis from my coffee table book is as follows. George employs the truth to break up with a pretentious accountant, who then throws out all of Jerry's important tax papers and checks into a mental institution. Kramer makes a coffee table out of a windshield and sees Elaine naked while dating her roommate Tina. This episode is written by Elaine Pope. So this is the first episode to be written by a female writer. Yay! Elaine Pope, she was a writer on Fridays, which Larry David and Larry Charles were a part of. So she wrote this episode, and she'll go on to write 2 more, The Fix-Up and The Cheever Letters. She's also a producer on Seinfeld for a few seasons. So this is great, a different voice and a female voice for this episode, The Truth. So the first scene, we are in Monk's. There's no Elaine, but it's George and Patrice, his girlfriend, and she is just going on about different things she wants to accomplish with her papier-mâché, making hats out of papier-mâché. And right off the bat, you can tell George is very annoyed and trying to stay interested, and it's awkward. You can tell right off the bat that this isn't a good match for George. Patrice is played by Valerie Mahaffey, and she has been on hundreds of episodes of television and is currently on a show on ABC called Big Sky. I've not seen Big Sky, but it is on ABC. She made a name for herself in Hollywood playing eccentric characters, and I think we can see why. She is great in this episode. I think she's perfect for this role. And both in the writing and portrayal by Valerie Mahaffey, you see the establishment right away of who she is. I mean, and why she's so annoying. I mean, the outfit with the kimono dress, those earrings, the chopsticks, I mean, everything. It's just so great. All the exposition on this character, Patrice, is captured by every facet of the way she's presented. And I just love that. It's so well done in such a short amount of time. All right, in the next scene, Jerry's at his apartment. He's organizing papers because he is being audited. And we find out that he's being audited because Kramer had pressured him to donate to this volcano charity, and he did it in front of Elaine on their first date. So Jerry felt cornered. He had to do it. Elaine enters. So right away, we can tell Elaine is annoyed. And she asks Kramer to not put on the tomato sauce to his spaghetti while it's in the strainer, and that now her strainer has hardened red sauce in all the squares. And he says, when do you put the sauce on? Any other time. No. I like to strain the sauce. Jerry's just sitting there with a big grin on his face and says, I just love that Kramer is dating your roommate. He's so amused by this. And she goes on to say, and I could really do without the tribal music and the makeout sessions in the living room. And Kramer's just, he just loves it. He's like, well, Tina likes the couch. Elaine notices all the audit materials around, and she then remembers about the whole volcano thing and figures out, oh, you were trying to impress me. What do you think? You'd donate to this charity and I'd start ripping off my clothes? And Jerry's just like, whoa, I was just thinking of the Krakatoan. Well, that's karma. No, that's Kramer. I swear you can hear a groan from the audience, and that deserves a groan. Jerry mentions that George's girlfriend, who used to work for the IRS, is going to be helping him out. And that is the only thing that's keeping him calm about this audit situation. All right, the purpose of this scene is, this is our setup scene, technically the second one, but we're learning that Jerry is being audited, but that George's girlfriend, Patrice, is going to help. Kramer is dating Tina, and, well, Elaine is not very happy about that. My overall take, one thing that I did not like in this scene was the overly dramatic explanation by Jerry of who Patrice is. I feel like maybe they're trying to give Jerry some more performative moments. It didn't really work for me. It's not that he butchered it or anything, but I think we could have had more time discussing the whole Kramer Tina thing and how Elaine is so bothered by kind of everything about their relationship. I like how Elaine is involved in both plots in a certain way. I mean, the audit is happening to Jerry because of that donation he made because Elaine was there. And that, the roommate of Elaine is dating Kramer. So I like that she has a place in kind of both plots. The matchup of Elaine and Kramer through him dating Tina is just comedic gold. I love it. And I loved the specificity of how Kramer makes spaghetti. And just thinking about those hardened squares she talks about in the strainer. Oh my gosh, it gives me anxiety. And maybe this is, kind of the flavor we get from Elaine Pope. Let's what is something that's so specifically annoying that you don't hear about? It's not like a common thing that you hear about, but oh man, she nails it with hardened squares of sauce in a strainer. Oh my gosh, how incredibly, it just says a lot about the person who does that. They don't think ahead. This isn't the best way to do this. And it's just a small example of how Kramer has taken over Elaine's home life. She's having to deal with him in her kind of safe space in her own apartment. I mean, he's cooking dinner at her place. He's pretty comfortable there. And the mention of the tribal music and making out on the couch. Through JLD's performance, you see the toll it's taking on her. And I also love how amused Jerry is about it, about the whole situation. I mean, he's had to deal with all of Kramer's tendencies, so he's clearly giddy that Elaine has to share in that. I think it's a bit of a leap that Elaine figures out that Jerry's Krakatoan donation was what got him audited, but I'll forgive it. It's not a big deal. But I just thought, I was like, I don't know if she would have figured that out so fast. And I like to see Jerry squirm, honestly. He's definitely embarrassed that he was trying to impress Elaine. And I like that she calls him out on it. She never really lets those things go, which I like. All right, the next scene, there's no Elaine, but quickly I'll go over what happens. George breaks up with Patrice, and he's trying to use his regular, it's not you, it's me, I've got a fear of commitment. But she knows. She's like, no, I must have done something. Pressuring him. She's berating him for the truth. Finally, he just explodes. It is your earrings and the chopsticks. You're so pretentious. Papier-mâché. Oh, I love it. I love it, love it, love it. And she kind of thanks him for being honest. She's obviously very hurt. And such classic George, still makes her pay on the way out. This is a great Jason Alexander performance. I love the build-up, the sort of climax of his speech, and then the retraction from all his rage. It all happens in just a couple of minutes, and it's a great performance. All right, so the next scene, we're back in Jerry's place. Elaine's filing her nails and listening to Jerry just go on and on about how if he didn't have this hookup with George's girlfriend helping him out with this audit, what he would do to Kramer, oh my goodness, he would crush that man. George buzzes. He enters very excited. Uh-oh, he remembers Jerry's papers. Well, he broke up with her. As soon as Kramer hears that, he slips out the door. And George very naively says, well, no, I think she'll still do it. Well, why? Why would she do that? People don't do favors for those who just dumped them. Well, we left it on good terms. I told her the truth. God, Jerry knows this is bad. And he told her she's pretentious. Then Elaine asks, how would you like it if someone told you the truth? Oh, and I love the shift in energy right away. George is like, well, what could they say? Oh, there's plenty they could say. Like, what? Is there an odor I'm not aware of? What is it? And I like that she confirms, you're sure? You sure you want to know? Okay. She tells him you're extremely careful with money. Oh, this devastates George. How could you say that to me? Well, I'm not really working right now. I mean, in that moment, you sort of feel sorry for George. He is so hurt by Elaine saying that. Jerry's like, I hate to bring this back to a small financial matter, but what about my papers? George says, well, she put them in her pocketbook. Elaine says, a pocketbook or a handbag? And I love this because, okay, I have wondered about this as well. I've heard the term pocketbook, and I've never really understood what it means. I didn't know if it was synonymous with a bag or a purse. So I did a little research for you, dear listener, if you've wondered this as well, which I'm pretty sure you haven't, but I did. And so I did a little Goog search. Sorry for saying Goog search. And this is what I found out. A pocketbook is usually used to refer to a medium-sized bag, which is a bag bigger than a purse but smaller than a handbag. Well, what's a handbag? A handbag is what you carry on your hand, over your shoulder, in the fold of your elbow, or just by the handles. So it seems like so it's bigger than a pocketbook, and a purse is a small bag. So if you're going to go from largest to smallest, largest would be a handbag, then you get a pocketbook, and then you get a purse. There you go. This can be the something new you learned today. Well, if you didn't know that, and I didn't. So I was happy to finally put that mystery to rest. So then George tries to call Patrice, but finds out she never came back from lunch to the office. Calls her house, and she just hangs up on him. This is not good, Jerry says. George promises he'll get the papers. Don't worry about it. The purpose of this scene, Patrice is missing, and Jerry's audit getting resolved is in real trouble. My overall take on this scene, I like the mood shift with George after he realizes his decision to break up with Patrice really jeopardizes Jerry's situation. The exchange between George and Elaine, where Elaine tells him the truth, and another just real quick a performance thing that JLD did where she almost says cheap, but decides, okay, I'll just say extremely careful with money. She does start with a little bit of a CH sound. So I love that little quick decision making. That exchange was too short, in my opinion. I love a good George and Elaine bickering match. This is still early Elaine, so she drops it as soon as George got so offended. But I would have loved to see a little bit more of our prickly Elaine naming 2 or 3 more things. And then he would have tried to retort, but I think she would just glare at him in that Elaine way, and, he'd cave. He's scared of her. He admits that in a later episode. All right, the next scene is in Jerry's apartment. Kramer is showing off this windshield he found on the road. Gonna make a coffee table out of it. Elaine buzzes. She enters and sees Kramer on the couch, and, well, it's awkward. There's some tension in the air. Jerry asks what's with them, and, well, Kramer saw her naked. And Elaine is mortified. Oh, how can I go on? Kramer says, well, look, you can see me naked. He starts to strip. Jerry has to stop it. Elaine is basically hiding behind Jerry. And then she sees this glass, and what is this? So it's going to be your new coffee table. I'm going to kill myself on that thing. You can't even see it. George enters. Didn't get the papers. He found out Patrice is in a mental institution. Oh, he's sick over this. And Jerry says, well, we got to go out to Woodhaven. We got to go to this mental institution and talk to her. Purpose of the scene, we see a development in the Kramer-Elaine plot and how torturous it is for Elaine. And Patrice has checked herself into a mental institution. My overall take on this scene makes me wish that the Kramer and Elaine plot was the A story of the episode. It's just so much more fun than the whole Patrice and the whole audit thing. Kramer seeing Elaine naked is just so palpably uncomfortable for Elaine. And through the physicality of JLD, especially the Jerry, how can I go on? Like you see it in her whole body. She's trying to literally shake it off, like shake the memory of Kramer walking in on her naked. Just, if she could physically shake it off her body, like a dog after he gets out of a pool or something, or out of water. And it's countered by Kramer's total comfort. I mean, he's not that bothered by it, but that's Kramer. And it makes it so much better. And you never get the sense that Kramer was being creepy, or that he enjoyed seeing her naked, or that it was like an intentional move to walk in on her. He thought it was another room. I think he said he thought it was a bathroom or closet. And plus his willingness to strip in order to kind of even it all out in a very twisted way. That's Kramer's way of being a friend. To him, it's just whatever. I'll strip down. You see me naked. Well, that'll smooth everything over. And after seeing this interaction and, well, wanting more of it, it may be a toss-up between the matchup of George and Elaine and Kramer and Elaine. And it just really has to do with how talented these actors are. Just recently, I was listening to an Office Ladies podcast episode, and they were covering an episode that was directed by a legendary director, Asad Khalada. And they quoted him about his opinion on great comedy. And basically he said how casting is the key to making great comedy because you cannot teach an actor to be funny. And that compared to drama, comedy is more technical. It's about rhythm, timing, pace, and energy. Well, Jason Alexander, JLD, and Michael Richards are all just such gifted comedic actors. So any combination of those three is going to be genius. I mean, they all understand the mechanics of a great comedic performance. So they just, they give each other that space, or they take on the more expressive elements. It's that dance that all three of them really know in their bones, which just creates magic when any two of those three are combined in a storyline or in a scene. And this isn't, yes, I did not mention Jerry Seinfeld in that, and it's not to bash him, but, he's not really a comedic actor, and he said that himself. He learned how to hold his own, and definitely had great moments from time to time, but, he knew it, and that was also the reason for his generosity to give these other actors the spotlight, because they were the pure comedic actors and genius when it came to the performances in the show. All right, the next scene, there's no Elaine. It's just Jerry and George at Woodhaven to visit Patrice. George is sort of looking around thinking, God, I should be in a place like this. I did love the word association interaction. It's so true. Oh, there's no wrong answers. It's great. Patrice enters, and George is talking to her like she's a child or that she could explode at any time. And she's just right away, why are you talking like that? And she just says, look, you're just taking all this back because you feel guilty. He does a good job. He convinces her, this is really my problem. And she's softening a bit. And then Jerry kind of weasels his way in there and talks about his papers. And then she says, oh, you're the Jerome with the tax problem. Yes, I got so cuckoo. I threw all the papers out, but just give me the copies and I'll be sure to take care of it for you. Well, Jerry didn't make any copies. Who makes copies? The next scene, we're at Elaine's apartment. Elaine enters and is just horrified at the mess. There's tribal music. Kramer comes out dancing. Elaine is thoroughly grossed out. He's just in a towel. Tina pokes her head through. Are you coming back to bed? Oh, highline. She's wearing Elaine's earrings that she has to give back. It's just these little moments that are so fantastic. I love Siobhan Fallon as Tina. I've said it before, but my goodness, such a short scene with her, but so great. So Tina and Kramer are snuggling on the couch, and they can tell something's wrong with Elaine. To quote Tina, yeah, you seem a little dysfunctional. So fine. Elaine says, you want the truth? And then she doesn't say it. She just says, I think you make a very nice couple. And exits. Well, Kramer and Tina just start messing around. She loves the couch after all. And we hear the shattering of the windshield coffee table. Purpose of this scene, we finally get to see Elaine's nightmare. Kramer and Tina have taken over the entire apartment with all of their activities, be it cooking or getting it on. Getting it on? Who says that anymore? Oh, sorry about that. All right, my overall take, well, bottom line, I want a bottle episode of just Kramer, Tina, and Elaine, and it's just my wish. I don't care if they have to come back and recreate a bunch of magic at their ages now. This is just gold. I love this whole scene. When Elaine enters and hears that tribal music and that disaster in the kitchen, oh my God, holy shit, that kitchen gives me nightmares. You immediately feel like her frustration and like her rage. The way Kramer dances out of that bedroom, oh my gosh, it's just amazing. And he's just on cloud nine. He's enjoying life. And again, Siobhan Fallon is Tina. She's not in very many episodes, but for one of them to be Kramer's girlfriend, what a gift for all of us as the audience. And I love that they force Elaine to tell them the truth, our little mini dovetail of stories, or maybe not a dovetail, but like a common denominator between George confronting Patrice with the truth and now Elaine kind of getting cornered to tell them the truth. But she chickens out and says they make a very nice couple. And I thought about why? Why does she cave? Why doesn't she just unload on them and say, this is why I hate everything about you guys? I feel like while there are many intrusive and annoying parts to them dating, the fact that Tina is happy probably makes her a more tolerable roommate. So I don't think Elaine wants to jeopardize that. So this is where I feel we could have fleshed out the plot more, as to why Elaine doesn't want to tell them what she really feels. So we could have had, a Bennis barter or a scene swap, a swap stock. Sorry, I'll come up with something better or nothing at all. I'll just say this is what I feel they could have done more of and done less of. So basically, if we trim down some of the Jerry, elaborately describing who Patrice is or how much he'd tear Kramer apart if he didn't have her, we could have gotten more Kramer, Tina, and Elaine time. I wish that were the case. All right, the next scene is our last scene of the episode. Jerry's trying to track down receipts. Elaine is arranging flowers to visit Tina in the hospital. George is back with Patrice and going to a poetry reading. Kramer's all banged up as well from the little crash into the table. They all decide to take the same cab to all their different destinations. And Elaine says to George, you're chipping in. Well, you're going that way anyway. Purpose of the scene, it's our resolution scene. Kramer and Tina got very injured. Tina is in the hospital. George is back with Patrice and her pretentiousness. And Jerry is still in audit hell. Overall, I always love when everyone is together in that last scene. Just makes for a better ending, usually. It's a nice ending with Elaine making sure that George is chipping in for the cab. It's that callback to his cheapness, which he validates by saying, why do I have to chip in? You guys are going that way anyway. Just a side observation. I feel like George dates quite a few women who do these artsy things in old warehouses. You got Patrice, we got the baby shower Leslie woman who does the one woman show who she's cooking for God. And in the future, there's a staged reading of Godspell. It forced me to ask, would artsy women really go for George? I don't know. It just doesn't seem like the match would work. But maybe it's the irony that they're attracted to. Who knows? All right, so let's take a quick break and I will see you on the other side. Speaking is an art form. Whether you're addressing a large crowd or having a nice tete-a-tete with your neighbor, the way you speak says a lot about you. So why not make the most of what you say? Hello, I'm Blanche Estonnet, founder and president of It's Classified, a personalized coaching service to help elevate the way you speak so you can make fancy friends, high society acquaintances, and lucrative business deals. With It's Classified, I will coach you to class up your language in only 3 weeks. You'll go from saying words the way they've been spoken for generations to a new, improved, and most importantly, classy dialect. Here is a success story from one of my students, Joey.
Thanks, Blanche. I had a real important meeting with a new client last year, and from their address, I knew they was classy folk. I almost canceled, but then one day I saw a flyer on Columbus Avenue for It's Classified. Boy, I'll tell you, after 3 weeks with Blanche, I went to that meeting with confidence, and they hired me on the spot as their go-to plumber. Excuse me, their fecal duct exterminator.
Gratitude to you, Joey. If you are sick and tired of sounding like everyone else, then hire It's Classified to class up your speech patterns. My advertisements can be found on multiple telephone poles in the city. Just call the number and ask for me, a Blanche Estonnet, spelled the same as Blanche Stone, but pronounced classier. It's Classified, for you only get a single opportunity to create an initial impression with your mouth. And we're back. There weren't very many extras for this episode on the DVD, but there were some notes about nothing I wanted to mention. The character of Patrice, the description for her on the script was, she's pretty, but everything is a little strived for. I like that description. It really does kind of paint the picture of who she is. In that first scene, Patrice was originally going to end the scene saying that she had a great idea for a tattoo on her back that read, "And then she walked away," in Japanese. So annoying and so perfect for that character. When Elaine says, "Oh, it's a riot, Alice," in response to Jerry's amusement to Tina dating Kramer, that is a reference to the 1950s Jackie Gleason sitcom The Honeymooners. I knew it sounded familiar, but, I wasn't born in the 50s, you guys. There was a quote from JLD in the Notes About Nothing on the success of Seinfeld. She says, "We have no big messages, no moral, no pretense. I'm so tired of television in 22 minutes trying to teach a life lesson. We're not solving cancer. We want jokes. Now it's the meaning, the artistry. Who am I reaching? I'm glad if people enjoy the show and my check clears." This speaks to definitely, the tone of Seinfeld and how it differed. And when I was thinking about this, it is amazing how many comedies, when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s, they would every now and then have these very special episodes. And it was like super heavy stuff, and it halted, the comedy of the show for emotional moments and life lessons. And one that comes to mind, and that my brother will still rip on me for because it was a little ridiculous. But hey, they made me do it. Was that I once cried at an episode of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I was a huge fan of that show. We used to tape it, in fact, just like we taped Seinfeld. This episode in particular, Carlton accidentally takes Speed from Will's locker, and he ends up collapsing at prom. Will feels responsible. The Speed wasn't his, but this guy tried to sell it to him, and he just kind of stuffed it in his locker and kind of forgot about it. And that's how Carlton got access to it. And there's a really emotional scene at the end where Will is apologizing, and he gets it's a powerful performance, okay? I'm just going to put that out there. He fucking crushed that scene. Top-notch cry acting. And I cried along with him, and I'll never forget my brother looking over at me. He's like, "Are you crying at Fresh Prince?" Yeah, I felt the appropriate amount of embarrassment about that, but this whole example is just to show, there were always these very special episodes and, kind of emotional, for whatever reason, emotional scenes emotional storylines and life lesson storylines in a lot of these sitcoms back then. And, for those sitcoms, it makes sense. I'm not bashing them at all, but it never made sense for Seinfeld. And I'm glad that we got a break from that with Seinfeld, with the tone of Seinfeld. It felt so different, and so much lighter, I think. And I still enjoy getting choked up during my comedy shows that I really like. The Office had those moments, Parks and Rec. I finally watched Schitt's Creek, and, they all had these moments. And these shows, they figured out how to master comedy, but also provide some really touching moments in controlled doses. And I've cried during all of those shows. So it's to quote Dolly Parton in Steel Magnolias, "Laughter through tears is my favorite emotion." So I think that's relevant. Okay, moving on to Contributor Corner. Greg sent in some thoughts, and he says, "Once again, George seems to be the main focus of this episode, but what we get of Elaine in her subplot, she delivers as usual. I like how aggravated she is by Kramer dating her roommate. She dislikes this roommate anyway, so the added bonus of Kramer romancing her constantly in their apartment is a nice story for Elaine to have with Kramer, whom she really hasn't interacted with much so far in the series. I also like later how Kramer says he had seen Elaine naked and how unsettling it is for her. When she says, 'Jerry, how can I go on?' You really see how funny she can be in just line delivery alone." Agreed, Greg. Yes, this was all great. And yeah, the combination of Elaine and Kramer, like I said earlier, it sort of rivals the Elaine and George storylines for me as well. I think, I want to say, and I haven't done an official count, but I feel like Elaine and George are probably matched up more in the series than Elaine and Kramer. But one of my favorite scenes, and we'll get to it way, way in the future, but when she gets Kramer to try and get her medical records. Bennett, right? No, Bennis, you jackass. My last name is Bennis. Oh, that is one of my favorite moments. And he just stares at her. Yeah, they are just genius together. Greg goes on to say, I love when Elaine remembers how Jerry donated to the very charity he was being audited for donating to on their first date, and how he must have thought she'd start ripping her clothes off because he donated. I like that she can make fun of him and he just sort of takes it. Jerry being the more even-Steven character, it's fun to see him get mocked by Elaine since he's the one usually mocking the others. Yes, I kind of mentioned this earlier too, Greg. I do love that you can tell he gets a little embarrassed, but he doesn't fight back, and certainly not against Elaine. She's the one that can get away with mocking Jerry, and she takes every opportunity to do so. Love it. Next, Greg says, another highlight is Elaine calling George cheap in a polite way after she just said there were plenty of things to dislike about him. And as he gets mad, she gets mad to match him since he asked for the truth. Again, Elaine doesn't pull any punches, especially when it comes to George. George's line, "I spent, baby," is one of my favorites. I love Costanza using baby. It gets a laugh out of me every time. You're right. Yeah, she does match his anger, which is good, but I do think she did. She doesn't pull any punches with George, but I do feel like she pulled back a little bit once he got so upset. She's like, I know, especially when he says, I'm not really working right now. I know, she does for a second just kind of go, okay, fine. He can't take it right now. And lastly, Greg says, all in all, while they did a better job splitting the storylines evenly between George, Jerry, and Elaine Kramer this time, I still feel more could have been done with the Elaine subplot. It was much funnier than Jerry's dumb taxes and the mental ward girlfriend, who was more annoying than funny. Yes, I mentioned this too with the little swap conversation. Yeah, it's way funnier. I mean, and bring Siobhan Fallon in there. I mean, how can you get funnier than Elaine, Kramer, and Tina? You have this wonderful trio of comedic genius actors, and instead they go to something so mundane like, where are my papers? My audit, my papers. And yeah, this character who I feel like, yeah, it's not a lot of comedy. It's about her being annoying. I still think that the actress did a fantastic job as the character. But yeah, no, there's no match. Jerry, George, and Patrice is no match for Elaine, Kramer, and Tina. Completely agree. If you would like to become a contributor on Hot and Heavy, please email me at elainepodcast@gmail.com. That's elainepodcast@gmail.com. Also, if you are on Instagram and want to follow Hot and Heavy on Instagram, we are Hot Heavy Elaine. So it's Hot Heavy Elaine on Instagram. I post, of course, about the new episodes, but also anything Seinfeld related. Most recently, I posted how I saw a bald man at the U.S. Open. I was watching the U.S. Open yesterday, and in the background, I see this man, a full man standing there with gray hair. And I'm like, is that a bald man? I see bald boys and bald girls, or bald people, I guess I should say. But, traditionally it's called bald boys. I think you're missing. There are no bald men. Well, apparently there are bald men, because this guy was over 50 at least. So around Kramer's age. And yeah, he was, I don't think he was as spry as Kramer, which is what I said in the post, but there are some pictures, not in focus, but you can definitely make out that this is a bald man a la Kramer. So those are the types of exciting things you will see on Hot Heavy Elaine on Instagram. So my favorite Elaine moments, I just loved both of her interactions with Kramer at Jerry's place. First with the spaghetti, any other time. I just love that. Yes, that is the right answer. Why the hell are you putting sauce in the strainer? I like to strain the sauce. He says that with such come on. You know what's in the sauce, right? It's almost like Kramer knows something we don't know. The big spaghetti sauce conspiracy or something. Also, the post-naked awkwardness with Kramer. It's all gold. I love all those interactions. Furthermore, with the naked conversation, it's such a great range for Julia Louis-Dreyfus to play with. From that initial awkwardness when she enters the apartment to being so frustratedly angry the Kramer saw me naked, when she sort of tilts her head to Jerry going, are you understanding this? to her needing to physically shake it off, like I talked about, and then pouting behind Jerry's shoulder after Kramer threatens to strip. Her face when she's just kind of like behind his shoulder and like looking at him like he's really not taking his clothes off. I mean, she looks like a 4-year-old. It's fantastic. But that range she gets to play with in that scene is, it must have been so much fun for her to play. My final notes, we had some great female performances in this episode, but unfortunately the episode doesn't skew very female, which, again, with Elaine Pope as the writer, and this is the first episode she wrote, so who knows behind the scenes, maybe she had more Elaine stuff, and they, in the final edit, maybe wanted more of Jerry, because we know from earlier episodes, sometimes Jerry was accused of being way too generous to his co-stars, like, hey, this is your show, it's your name. But yeah, I think Valerie Mahaffey, I hope I'm not butchering her name, was fantastic. And, Elaine, of course, Siobhan Fallon. But, again, we mostly get a George plot here, and Jason Alexander gets to shine yet again. I'm going to get more into that in the next episode, because the next episode is The Pen. And we all know, any of us Seinfeld fans know, that is the episode that pissed Jason Alexander off so hard to the point where he threatened to quit. Ooh, I'll save that for next time. But my point is, kind of gearing up to that conversation for the next episode, Jason Alexander has had plenty of episodes to shine thus far, but we'll get into that next week. Elaine, has a plot, technically. It's connected to Kramer, which I love, but I wish we got to see more of it. Big surprise, I know. I always want more Elaine, but I feel like it's warranted here. Again, more interaction between Kramer, Tina, and Elaine. We hear about a lot of it. We get one scene of seeing it, but man, I really wish we could have traded out some of that Jerry audit stuff for more of the interaction between these three amazing comedic actors. Overall, it's a very middle-of-the-road episode. I like the concept about how telling the truth can ultimately ruin your relationship, even though honesty is the best policy. But sometimes, it's a must-lie situation. I felt like it connected to that must-lie situation conversation in a later episode. And I think that's all I can say about The Truth. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time.